Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is JC from Team Empire, and today we are bringing you April's monthly meta, going over all the Springfest events that happened this month for the premium format. Today I am here with a guest. I'm here with my teammate Frank, who is a fellow premium enjoyer and a big fan of clans like Dimension Police. Frank, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, very excited to have start having guests on, and we have 5 events that happened this month between the U.S., Europe, and AO, and we're just gonna jump right in. The first event this month was in Germany, and congratulations to Team Shiny Cardboard Addiction, who won with Highlander, Chaos, and Gridora. Now keep in mind that these first 3 events were pre-ban list, so we're going to be seeing a lot of Highlander and a lot of Steam Maiden. Second place team was Regalia, Steam Maiden, and Sweet Command, or Eradicators. Third place team, Jewel Knights, Highlander, and Steam Maiden. And then the fourth place team, we had Sweet Command, Steam Maiden, and Regalia. So overall, even though it's pre-ban list, there's a lot of interesting lists on here. The main ones, the one that I want to discuss from Germany is Regalia, since we do have 2 Regalia lists. So we're going to jump over to...
It's definitely an interesting list to see, because we don't see a whole lot of Regalias topping.
Yeah, like it's kind of it's still very much a powerhouse of a deck. I think its main problem is that it does have a lot of pieces that it needs to see in Soul so that it gets its very strong turns, you know? So I'm going to jump over to Vanguard Paradox. You can take a look at the pie chart here, and we're going to look at the second place Regalia lists first. And these lists are actually very, very different. So in case you don't know, viewers that are watching, Regalia is most dependent on CEO Yggdrasil and Norn, which Yggdrasil basically searches out Norn, and Norn can restand any of your columns essentially after boosting, including the Vanguard column, which is really important in stride turns. But this list...
Very scary.
Yeah, very scary indeed, and it can get several drive checks. Kind of like Astral Poets, but a little more of a wider ceiling, if you will, since you're not just relying on one circle. You have all your rear guards that are threatening. And this list, to me, is more of a toolbox because you have multiple ride targets in the Angelica and in the Frag. And there's this piece, that basically decreases your Soul Blast cost so that you're able to do your Vanguard skills and Marduk more often.
Oh, that's actually crazy. I've never seen that grade 1 before.
Yeah, I hadn't either before this list, so very interesting picks from this from the second place team. And then most of the G-Zones in this deck are pretty standard. You play 1 Marduk in case you get like a lot of soul early, so that way you're able to just like high roll your opponent. You play 4 Minerva because she's the best stride. You pretty much go into her almost every single time. And then you have some resources in like the Jagnaragna, however you say that, the Amaruta, and this is also like, I think, a countercharging stride in case you get like damage denied, essentially. So there's a lot of toolbox in this deck, but the other list, I think from the 4th place team, pardon my tabs, is very different in that it's more consistent in my eyes. Because this list, instead of playing like split ride targets, plays 4 Frag, which is able to top 5 search for any Regalia name. So you're with that search looking for things like, you know, your Yggdrasils, Norn, and then even this girl who's able to just like put more things into Soul. So this guy was going for a little more consistency rather than like high roll and toolbox. And I think another thing that really stands out in this list is this overdress card, Dioruing, however you say that. This card is basically a greed shade for any single clan in United Sanctuary, because it lets you search any. It lets you add back any card from drop that has a clan in its card text.
Well, that is pretty nice. Soul Blast, discard, and
just add back to
yeah.
hand.
So you can even discard your piece that you don't really need at the moment to add a different piece.
Yeah, exactly. And since it says card, it can even add heals back to hand. It can add PGs back to hand, since this deck almost always runs the grade 1 Regalia PG. It can add like Stride Fodder later back to hand. It's just a very, very interesting card, and I think more United Sanctuary decks should start consider playing him for the consistency. And like I was saying earlier, this G Zone is pretty standard. If you were to compare, these would be almost the exact same, other than this list was playing 2 Marduk rather than the 1 from earlier. So, very cool deck. I'm actually very scared of this deck. A lot of the decks I play are weak to this strategy.
I also think, at least with Premium, a lot of people don't think about the new D cards that come out that are generic support, and so it's good to see a topping list that has a generic support card, because maybe it'll help other Premium players realize that they need to start looking at D format for support for their decks.
Yeah,
especially considering it's no longer clan based, it's everything in it. So you never know when the card's going to be really good and you can just use it.
Yeah, I agree. Knowing the card pool in every format is very necessary for the competitive leagues. So moving on to our second event this month. This was Georgia Premium. Congratulations to Crit Club presents Team Baba Booey for winning first with Highlander, Dimension Police, and Steam Maidens. The second place team was Gridora, Highlander, Steam Maidens. Third place team was The Leader, NLK, and Steam Maidens. And the fourth place team was Steam Maidens, NLK, and Nightmare Dolls. Now, first and foremost, I know what's going to stand out to Frank is that a Dimension Police was in the first place team.
We love Dimension Police here.
Yeah, so right away, we're just going to jump over to that deck for Mr. Frank and look at this Dialaner list. So right off the bat, Frank, what do you think about this list?
So I personally run almost exactly the same list, except I do not run the Superior Red engine. I used to run it, but I feel like against certain matchups, you're using too many of your cards in hand to perform the Superior Red.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go first, the Superior Red engine's crazy, because you're at grade 3 and your opponent's on grade 1. Like, it's ridiculous. And you also get the on-placed effects. You're guaranteeing your search because you search for a grade 3, so you can grab anything. Specifically, you want to go Kaizard if you're going first. If you go second, you want to go Die Dumper, so you have the shield value on your grade 3s. This dude's also running the 3-3 split of Die Arm and Taser, which I would 100% agree with. Sometimes you're going to go against the Steam Maiden players and you need the Tasers. Sometimes you go against the Eradicator player that always has 10 plus cards in hand and you just punish them with the Die Arm.
Right.
And they're also running the Die Jet, which is also something I haven't seen. I'm not too versed in all of the Dimension Police G cards, but this one seems really interesting because you get to shuffle grade 3s back into deck, which is sometime important for your strides when you Linka, because you want to have those extra grade 3 targets. And I mean, I guess you can have the CB draw card, even though I think that's terrible.
Yeah, it's like you probably don't need that. And then
the only main difference I think actually is the grade 1, because I run the playsets of Eternity Chasers versus Die Prop.
Mm-hmm.
But based on the way that he built his deck, he's going to want to draw the cards because he's going to be he doesn't necessarily need to find his grade 3 target. He's just going to try to spam out the grade 1s and ride from hand. So that's definitely where I can see that difference in our list.
Right. He also has the critical triggers to increase robo names for the Superior Ride.
Yeah, definitely. If you're going to run the Superior Ride engine, I recommend picking up those crits. I mean, they're everywhere. They're just a common. But you want the dimensional robo name to have those extra targets because you're trying to ride up on your grade 2 turn to grade 3. So as grade 3 heavy as DP is, you want to have those extra targets.
Right. And G-Zone seems pretty standard.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One Dolphin for those matchups where you want to accelerate for X Gallop, for Geoglass because it's the best stride we have, followed by very closely the 3 Unibirds because Unibird is insane, plus Jerome Glass, the G Guard, to add back all of our shields, which I'm really excited for this next BCS season when we have the new festival cards, because for those of you that don't know, we're all getting generic grade 3s that get 10k shield when your opponent checks a trigger. So in Dimension Police, those are going to be 40k shields if you have all your Geos flipped. So being able to Soul Blast and add 80k shield back to hand seems kind of nice.
Moving on, we're still in Germany. I want to talk about NLK. So for any new premium enjoyers out there, NLK used to be one of the best decks in the format back in 2018-2019. The deck died off whenever Enigmatic Assassin was limited, because this card was basically able to just keep spamming itself out of soul after using NLK's skill. And this deck took another hit when an important stride called 2019 Gasti stride got banned in 21. However, this deck has been showing up more, and I think it's because it's received some very good promos recently and consistency pieces that have allowed it to just add more shield to the deck and make harder decisions for your opponent. Because in case you don't know, giving this deck damage is a very dangerous thing, because NLK can continuously be Superior Ride with 1 or 2 damage in case it has its counter chargers. This card, this promo, pretty much replaced Number of Terror, which was the deck's old draw engine. But the problem with Number of Terror was it was a grade 3, and so you were playing a lot of grade 3s in the deck, whereas this card is extra shield. It draws cards and cycles cards. It puts rear guards into soul. It counter charges. This card does pretty much everything that the deck wants to be doing. And since you don't have to play Number of Terror anymore, you get to play more grade 2 pieces like that. You get to play more of like Dimensional Creeper just to ramp soul. And you basically just get to add more soul charging pieces to advance your strategy. If your soul becomes big enough at a certain point, then this deck is going to go into Hope on Damp, which is a ridiculous guard restrict that requires you to guard with original 20k shield, which is a very rare thing now in Premium with all the new types of shield we have with like Heal Guardians. And then if you somehow survive that with like an NLK turn with Hope on Damp and Barrow Magnus, if you somehow survive all of that, then you have to survive Forefox, which is the newest stride that lets him Superior Stride after your grade 3 Vanguard attacks, and then he gets to put critical triggers back into the deck. So overall, this deck just has a very disgusting high roll, and if you are a new Premium player, I would study up a lot on this deck and know exactly when and when not to give them damage, because you won't be able to survive.
Never give them damage.
Yeah.
Never do it. Force them to use their G guard or their heal from hand.
Their heal guard. Yeah.
Never give them CB. They'll just pop off, and it's ridiculous. We had a buddy of ours at our local shop that played this deck for a very long time, and I got punished every time I gave them damage early. So, as someone that's played against the deck try to never give them damage unless you're going to try to kill them that turn.
Yeah, and some people are shocked that this deck is coming back because it's always been kind of a glass cannon. But again, like, as long as they're able to have their soul charge pieces and play more shield and they draw into NLK, then they're going to be fine. And there was another list, but I don't think it was that different. You'll see NLK pop up a few times over the next few events. I think one of the main differences is in this list. We'll let it load for a second. Yeah, so one of the main differences is this deck, this person was not playing any grade 3 searchers. Instead was playing this guy, which I think is interesting. He says when placed, counterblast 1, put a card from your damage zone into your soul, put a grade 2 or greater card from your soul into your hand, and then you put the card of your deck into the damage zone. So basically this card can put grade 3s into soul, like Barrow Magnus, that you do want to ride, or maybe even NLK, and then you get to grab any sort of other important pieces. Like you can grab Heal Guardians, put them back in your hand. You grab NLK, put them back in your hand. Soul charging pieces. So a little more consistency coming from this guy at the cost of playing more grade 3s. So this deck is very...
It's definitely an interesting add to the deck, because that's another way that you can actually beat out the NLK players is by damaging all their NLKs, so that kind of mitigates that risk for them.
Yeah, and you will know the difference between like a good and bad NLK player right away if they start trying to like rush you. Like if they call rear guards, swing into their rear guards. You know, that's something
the head ass move.
Yes,
you don't.
That shouldn't happen.
You
but
play NLK. You don't play your rear guards unless you're on your NLK turn. Yeah,
so a bit of a longer segment there, but I think it's really important to talk about this deck since it's never really left the premium. It's always been relevant in premium, you know. All right. Speaking of, we're moving on to BCS Manila or BCS Philippines. Congratulations to the first place team, Balls Check, with Gradora, NLK, and Holy Shine, which is a gold paladin build. Second place team was Steve Maiden, Eradicator, and Battle Sisters. Third place team was Eradicator, Aquaforce or Thavis, and Steve Maiden. And the fourth place team was Gradora, Steve Maiden, and Riviere. A bit of a shake-up on the Bermuda there. So right away, Frank, the things that stand out to me are like Holy Shine, Battle Sister, Thavis, like a lot of these one-ofs that are appearing.
Yeah, definitely very interesting to see a Battle Sisters top. Mm-hmm. It just hasn't really gotten that much support. I think in set 9 it got some support, so I'm curious to see if any of that got put in there. I think in set 10 they're getting another Divine Sister or two. Mm-hmm. There's just not a whole lot of them, at least coming out in D format.
Right.
Holy Shine, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what that deck does. I just know it's a gold paladin deck.
Well, let's go ahead and talk.
If we want to go over that, definitely interested.
Yeah, so I think this is another important deck for people to know about because this deck was hyped up a lot when Holy Shine did come out in Clan Collection, but it didn't get to shine. It didn't get to shine because it came out around the same time that Ripple format was a thing. So Holy Shine is all about superior riding into another grade 3 Liberator from your deck. So what that means is you're going to ride this card, get an Excel, and then you're without fail going to ride into Percival, which is going to get you another Excel, and just, we all know how disgusting Percival is. If you don't know, then go read him right now. But the goal is to just ride up, make a bunch of Excel markers, and try to kill your opponent right then and there. And you can tell that this person is trying to kill on ride up, if not sooner, because they're also playing the overtrigger, which means they're not playing Ultima. So this person is not trying to go into a late game. They're trying to spam the board with as many Excel circles as possible and just hope to win. You know? So I would look over this deck, read over Holy Shine. It's another Gold is another tricky deck on like when or when not to give them damage, because they also have their superior stride from the Spearex Dragon. So a lot to think about. I think this deck is a little tricky though, because it does use a lot of CB with Holy Shine and Percival. So read up on it, and if you have a friend that plays Golds, I would highly recommend testing against them, because it's another very scary clan in Premium. Moving on, I know Frank and I were talking about Thavis. It's one of Frank's favorite decks. Ironically, you know.
As the Dimension Police player, I hate Thavis. They like to swing at me for 14k, and I only have big shields, so we cry every time.
So obviously Thavis is a ride down deck because of the way that the grade 3 V Thavis is worded. You ride a grade 3 card from Soul, and if you don't have a grade 3 card in Soul, you have to ride down to whatever is closest to that, being a grade 2, which means the deck does
Nice.
Which means the deck does play Rollock, which is an amazing card for ride down decks. And then your grade 4 targets are Lambros and also Magnolia Elder. Magnolia Elder, you'll get 4 drive checks, whereas Lambros will restand columns after attacking. And yeah, I mean, it's just Aquaforce stuff. This person also plays like plant token shenanigans for an early game.
Yeah, that grade 2 that you were just highlighting over, that card is seeing a lot more support, or like is being played in a lot more of the green clans, because being able to spam out 19k worth of stats is pretty nice for a grade 2 card, because you can either make the plant tokens their own column, which is a 10k column, or you put them behind the Vanguard and this grade 2, and you know, just making those magic numbers a little bit better.
Absolutely, yeah. All Stoicheia clans now having access to plant tokens is pretty crazy for Premium. You know, it just improves early game for a lot of different decks.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised I don't see Mushroom in here, but the grade 1 lineup looks like it's a little tight, but they're also kind of running a bunch of 1-ofs.
Yes.
Or 2 1-ofs in there.
Yeah.
So definitely interesting to see the Bell specifically. I don't really know what they
So Bell is here. Bell is here to counter Narukami.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I was like, why is the tugging out? Yeah,
because
that makes a lot
this
of
deck hard loses to Narukami.
Yeah, and then you survive the Narukami turn, and you're like, all right, no, I have a 57k Bell because you bound all my stuff.
Exactly. Into our fourth event for the month, which was France, BCS France. Now, this is when the ban list was in effect, and because of that, we had a lot of very interesting stuff enter the format. So congratulations to the first place team, Alliance Homes, something like that, with Steam Maiden, NLK, and Thavis. Now, something I want to mention that I brought up in my prior video, Steam Maidens is not a bad deck, just because the Ingelsa, the ride down card, is gone. It still has Enterana, which helps you plus a billion cards, and a lot of Steam Maiden players are starting to play Chronojet so that they can still ride down. It's not as consistent because Chronojet is not a Steam Maiden, but a lot of players still do value having a ride down deck in Steam Maidens with the Enterana. So it's pretty nasty. Second place team had Nightmare Dolls, Astral Poet, Dragon Tree, which we are going to talk about here in a second, and NLK. Again, NLK is just popping up all over the place. Third place team, we had Highlander, Eradicator, and Regalia. Highlander's still coming up, like it's still a good high roll deck. And then fourth place team was NLK, Katrina, and Eradicators. So pretty interesting turn of events, right, Frank?
Yeah, the fact that we only see uh, like two similar decks in this top cut is actually kind of crazy, considering like as a premium player, I think the ban list was needed because Steam Maidens was just extremely consistent on top of the high roll. So they got knocked down a peg, and then you see these other strong decks coming out. I'm very interested in the Dragon Tree stuff for premium because everybody knows that the Astral Poet go burr. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to talking about that deck.
I think we should just jump right in. So for anyone who is unaware of this combo, basically Valkyrion, the grade 5 unit, is going to get drive checks based on whatever card you discard from his top 5 check, based on the grade. And originally this used to be a maximum of 5 drive checks, because if you saw Valkyrion, then, oh, he's a grade 5, you get 5 drive checks. Well, what happens if you discard Griffagilla? Well, then you get 10 drive checks. And then, past that, after Uranus restands him, Uranus only says drive -5. Well, if you're if he has drive 10, then his next attack is going to be 5 drive. So you get 10 drive checks from the Valkyrion, then another 5 from the Valkyrion, then you get your normal twin drive from Uranus. So you get a 17 drive check turn in total if you get the high roll.
And the new overtrigger that we're getting is going to be able to restand it.
Yep.
And make it even scarier, just because it won't get the drive checks because of the standing rule, but it's still insane and very scary because it's a big boy.
Yep. And something I think is very interesting is even though that stand trigger rulings were changed 2 years ago so that a restood unit can't perform drive checks, this person does still play 7 stand trigger because the Valkyrion is still like at least a 70k attack. So you can see that they still value that. And if you're playing 7 of these stand triggers in like a 15 drive check deck, you're probably going to see them. And with the 4 Dreaming Dragon, you can just completely reset your deck by putting your entire drop zone back into your deck. So very interesting list.
Yeah, they're definitely going for the haha, I get 15 drive checks on a rear guard aspect for sure.
And this is another overdress card that I remember Jack was actually bringing up when it was revealed. When this unit is placed on rear from hand, you Soul Blast 1, choose a grade 2 or greater card from your drop, and you put it on the top of your deck. So this card can put Griffagilla on top of the deck for Valkyrion.
And then you just guarantee the grade 10.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Honestly, I think this is a very unique list, and I heard on Twitter that the player that piloted this deck went undefeated all day.
I wouldn't put it past him if he was just milling the grade 10 each time.
Yep. And I don't think the G-Zone is that relevant altogether because the only thing you're probably going to be going into is Marduk since you want to be using Uranus's skill. So, yeah, very cool deck. And I
also do want to point out that I have seen a lot of Dismals and G-Zones, which is very important against Dimensional Police and other, like the Bermudas and other clans, because if you Dismal, they can't discard and blow up your Guardians.
Right, yeah.
So it's good to see Dismals at least seeing more play like it should.
Yes, it has been appearing more. It's very interesting meta call. Honestly, I'm very interested to see how this deck will perform in BCS season this year. For singles format, And then I'm gonna move on real quick to the Katrina list. So France and Texas had a Katrina top, and they're both very different. And I think it's important to talk about because a lot of people were worried that Katrina was going to be an absolute nightmare. And in my prior predictions, I'd said I don't think it's going to be a nightmare because the power creep has caught up basically to how Katrina performs. So in this first build from France, this is more of your standard normal game stuff. So you're just playing a lot of like token callers. You're playing 2 really good ride targets that call tokens on place or call rear guards that will call those. That way your Katrina turns are very strong. All Katrina lists need to play Cyclone because Cyclone increases the power of vanilla cards, which includes tokens, and Katrina on place just immediately flips something from your G zone. So this deck is it makes a lot of sense on paper, but it does require some testing because you have great token rush, but if people rush you back and you don't know how to make it to your stride turn with this deck, then you can just lose because you kind of need to get to Katrina to guarantee this deck's like win condition. Another interesting play is that this PG, the person plays 2 of them. Basically, you can call this off of Katrina, both of them, and then with this card's Bloom skill, you can counterblast 1 and bounce both of the PGs to your hand. So you get a guaranteed search for 2 PGs in case you need it, which I really like that play. I think it's very unique for the clan. I think any thoughts on this, Frank?
Plant tokens are adorable.
Yes.
Unless they're hitting me in the face.
Yes. And with that in mind, we're going to move on to our last event of the month for Texas. This is the event that Team Empire participated in. Unfortunately, it wasn't for Premium, which is big sag, but that's what they get for putting Standard and Premium on the same day. So
Yeah, that was definitely something sad for all of us. I know we had a fairly strong Premium team that we were going to take, but Standard ended up being the same day.
Yep.
We all did okay. At least talking with other people that played Standard, it felt like some of the sackiest games we've ever played of Vanguard. That's basically all I have to say about it. But definitely interesting to see such a wide variety of decks in the top. I think there's only 2 teams that have the same deck list, so It's definitely seeing a wider aspect of Premium is, hey, this one deck got hit, what can we take to do well with? And it's good to see a wider mix of top decks for Premium. Definitely makes me more hopeful for the format going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Congratulations to the first place team, Kingslayer cards with Jewel Knight, Chaos Breaker, and Steam Maiden. Second place team was Thavis, Katrina, Nightmare Dolls. Third place team, Steam Maiden, Nightmare Dolls, Highlander. And then fourth place team was Beatrice, Eradicators, and Chaos. So as Frank was saying, very, very diversified. Actually, I think this is my favorite results from the month. I'm going to immediately jump into the Katrina list because this one is very different. And personally, I think it is the stronger pick if you're going to play Katrina for the competitive season. Because this Katrina list plays the Superior Ride engine with the vanilla cards. So if you don't know...
I love the deck name.
Oh, Hurricane Katrina? Yeah.
Hurricane Katrina.
So if you don't know, this Grade 2 lets you Superior Ride from the deck into this Thunder Elemental that which is good for the deck because you can go from Grade 2 to 3 and immediately flip over a Cyclone. So on turn 2, you're on Grade 3, and you have plus 5k already to all of your tokens. So this deck is just trying to get to Katrina as fast as possible, because by the time you get there, you will actually, if you have enough CB, on your first stride, you'll have Katrina with 3 face-up Cyclone, which means all your tokens are going to have plus 25k power, which is crazy. So the other thing about the Superior Stride is it says if you have 4 or more units without abilities, meaning 4 vanillas. And one of the best cards to achieve this strategy is the burrow mushrooms because it creates 2 tokens by putting itself into soul, meaning you're getting rid of a non-vanilla for 2 vanilla cards. So if you open and you're able to find, like, ride this and call 2 burrow mushrooms, then you're gonna get your superior ride for free. And then your opponent's kind of on like a ticking time bomb, because that means they could be on grade 2 by the time you are on Katrina, and they're just gonna die if that happens. So, in case you're wondering, the solution, if you see a Neonectar starter flip up and you don't know whether or not it's the superior ride, I would always assume that it's the superior ride engine, and then do not give them damage, because this grade 2 is going to make your life miserable. Any thoughts, Frank?
Definitely can attest that, yet again, plant tokens are adorable unless they're smacking you in the face. We see the best D card that's been printed for green clans in a long time with the mushroom. I love and hate this card. I love it as someone that dabbles in Stochea from time to time, but as someone that usually plays non-Stochea decks, it's an annoying card. Definitely scary when it comes to basically having Roa's grade 3 order on crack in this deck by just making the tokens huge.
Yep.
And, you know, as we can see from their trigger lineup, they go crit, you die with their big rear guard columns, because literally they're just running crits.
Yeah, they're just running crits, and they have 7 vanilla crits, which means they can also just call these down when they have enough cyclones face up, and then your triggers are all of a sudden like 20k beaters.
Yeah, because they, of course, have the shred crits because you need them. But, yeah, just the generic vanilla crits to be able to get big numbers.
Yeah, so this deck is, I don't think it's as disgusting as it was in 2019, but read up on this list and the other one, and I would always assume if you're playing against a Neonectar player that they are playing the superior ride engine, in which you should not give them damage because they are just going to destroy you. So the last thing I want to talk about, we're not going to go super in-depth on it, but there are 2 Nightmare Dolls on this chart, which helps raise up my prior prediction that Nightmare Dolls is still a good deck. I would look at both of these lists. They're probably close to the same, and just understand that Nightmare Dolls is still a really, really good deck. It still gets a lot of multi-attack, and it is still able to ride down. So be prepared for that when you're facing against any of these teams. Overall, I think Premium is in a pretty cool spot right now. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about it because of how diverse the format is, but I think there's a lot of really strong decks in Premium right now. And for predictions, I don't have much. I think Katrina's going to keep seeing some plays. I think we'll continue to see some of these decks off of the Texas teams. And I'm overall really excited for the month of May. What about you, Frank?
I'm excited, but honestly, I'm more excited for our BCS season this winter, because not only are we getting History Collection, we're also getting a Festival Collection. So that's going to revive some older cards, hopefully make Premium even more accessible to people. So I'm definitely thinking that this BCS season is going to be really crazy. It's going to be really hard to test for. So I recommend getting with your buddies that are also Premium enjoyers and testing out as many decks against as many decks as you can, because you're going to want to have a wealth of knowledge going into this season if you want to play Premium. It's going to be, like I've said, basically a wild, wild west of Premium. And I think it's going to be one of the funnest formats to play in, considering I don't think any deck is really solved when it comes to adding History Collection into the mix.
Yep, I agree completely. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. be ready for next month's monthly meta. It's going to be a big one. We have 9 Springfest events next month, which means there's going to be a lot of coverage. Huge thank you again to Frank for joining me today. If you haven't already, please go check out our standard monthly meta, where I was joined with Lupe to talk about the standard meta. And without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see y'all soon for more meta content. Thank you again, Frank.
No problem.
Yep. Bye.